Well, there's been a very strong partnership between the state of Illinois and the county of Cook to prepare ourselves for that act if it were to take place. We have right now currently roughly 5,600 new arrivals that are still in our shelters. Our collective resources are prepared for as many as 15,000, but we certainly hope that Governor Abbott finds Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior and don't do that.
That's Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson reacting to the question yesterday of how the city plans to deal with a possible surge of non-citizen migrants heading to the city around the DNC. Good morning, back at it, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Subscribe, like, hit that notification with America's Talking Network. Yeah, last week we were in the Republican National Convention tracking what happened there. And of course, if you missed those broadcasts, you can go back to the America's Talking YouTube channel and find those broadcasts and the segments. But we're going to be on the ground at the Chicago Democratic National Convention. This is the national convention for Democrats to get together. It's been thrown into intrigue with President Joe Biden announcing that he's not going to be the presidential candidate for Democrats for a second term up against Republican Donald Trump. Republicans had their national convention last week, and being on the ground there, you saw the security apparatus. I am under the understanding it's going to be a very similar security apparatus around Chicago, but officials from national, state, and local law enforcement held a news conference yesterday to talk about the security perimeters and how that's going to play out. And if you want more information on this, you can go to chicago.gov OEMC. Again, chicago.gov/OEMC. And you can see there an overview of all the different things they've got going on. And for those of you in and around the Chicago area, I did this yesterday, you can actually register for alerts and notifications. So there you can see how to get Chicago Notify. They've got the DNC specific alerts. They've also got Shy Biz alerts as well for businesses, because there are businesses that are going to be impacted by this. I think like 900 businesses or something to that effect, they said yesterday. You can also, at this website, get essentially the all of the road information there's going to be. So we'll take a look at that here in a moment. But all of the joint agencies that came together, from the Secret Service to Chicago Police, they held a news conference yesterday. And the Secret Service Chicago Field Office Director, Derek Meyer, he addressed the crowd first up.
Good morning. My name is Derek Meyer, and I am the Deputy Special Agent in charge of the Secret Service's Chicago Field Office. I must begin by saying the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump on July 13th was a terrible day for our entire nation. The investigation into this incident is being handled in Washington, D.C. The Secret Service remains dedicated to transparency and is working diligently to seek answers. An incident like what took place in Butler, Pennsylvania, must never happen again. I have been working in the Chicago Field Office for the past 6 years. This is my home, and I'm eager for the 2024 Democratic National Convention to come to this city. The Secret Service has been working diligently over the past year with our local, state, and federal partners to develop a security plan for the convention.
So again, that security plan you can find for, at least if you need to know the perimeter in the Chicagoland area. This is going to be useful for me and my team as we're going to be on the ground at the Chicago DNC. If you look at that impacted area through the Chicago Office of Emergency Management Center, you can see some of the perimeters restricted for pedestrians. But also there's a vehicle screening perimeter as well. So they're going to have like concrete barricades up. They're going to have like 8-foot tall steel gates all over the place. And that's just for the United Center. But then they've also got the McCormick Place with a separate site. And there's a few miles between the McCormick Place and the United Center, but you could see there as well some of the vehicle screening perimeter and the pedestrian restricted perimeters that are up with vehicle screening checkpoints and so on. So a lot of security is going to be there. There's also going to be some shuttles for media and delegates going between the McCormick Place and the United Center. So looking forward to seeing the scope of the overall security in Chicago for the DNC. Again, last week in Milwaukee, I was there seeing exactly how they were keeping things secure, and all of the press credentials that we needed to have. A special one for and these were high quality press credentials. There was even like an RFID chip in the Secret Service credential, which you needed to hold up to a little receptor pad, and it would tell Secret Service who you are. So clearly, there's going to be a lot of security there. And Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling, he talked about how Chicago Police are going to be handling their side of security, especially when it comes to recognizing individuals' rights to free speech.
It is important that our officers understand the First Amendment and the protection of First Amendment activity. The Chicago Police Department will not only allow everyone who comes here to express their First Amendment rights, but we will also protect their rights while they're doing it. We will protect them. It is important to understand that our job is to uphold the Constitution, and that is exactly what we're going to do. What we will not tolerate is vandalism to our city. What we will not tolerate is violent activity. If we see that, we will put an end to it quickly.
So clearly, the Chicago police focused on allowing people to exercise their First Amendment rights, also recognizing the Fourth Amendment, he said, and that's your right against unreasonable search and seizure. But if they see any vandalism, any violent acts, they will stop those immediately upon seeing them. There was also other law enforcement that said, even the FBI was there, if you see something, say something. If you see anything, if you see any threats on the streets, say something. If you see something that is an immediate emergency, call 911. But they have tip lines through the FBI, through local law enforcement, to even have people report stuff they may see on social media that could be threatening. So obviously, it's not just law enforcement there on the ground. They're asking for the public to help out as well. But one thing that Snelling made clear yesterday was that in order to have a successful DNC in Chicago, it's not just about keeping the DNC safe, it's about keeping all of Chicago safe. And that means while there's going to be an enhanced police presence around the McCormick Place and around the United Center in Chicago, again, beginning August 19th through the 22nd, that's the convention, you can expect to see a lot more security prior to that. But in order to, flood the zone, so to speak, of law enforcement in those two high-profile areas, you've got to make sure the rest of the city's safe. And Snelling says they're bringing in outside officers to help with the DNC infrastructure so Chicago police can focus on some of the more, quote, volatile areas of the city.
Of outside agencies who are going to come in. Most of them are right here from Illinois, and then we have some from Milwaukee who are coming in. They will be assigned to areas where we need help with infrastructure. They will not be in the neighborhoods. They will not be in areas where we know there's a possibility that they would have to take some type of police action. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't have to where they are, but this will free up our officers, our Chicago police officers, to be in more volatile areas, right? Because this is our city, and our officers are bound by particular rules, regulations, and laws. At the same time, all of those officers who are coming in to the city of Chicago, they will be getting 8 to 12 hours of training on some of our policies, training, and the expectations of our city. So we have a really good plan in place for that, to make sure that they're secure and that our officers are responding to those more volatile situations in the city.
So, again, just some of what Snelling had to say there, ultimately reiterating that it's about making sure the entirety of the city is safe, not just the DNC. But what about those protest groups? There's lawsuits right now pending about restricted areas. Can certain groups get where they want to be in sight and sound of the delegates, for instance, which in Milwaukee, when I first got there, I did see a contingent of protesters filling the streets, marching through with all kinds of signs. They were far away from the security perimeter. And when I was in the security perimeter for the RNC, I really couldn't see anything beyond a flood of delegates and vendors and media. So there really wasn't much of the, within sight and sound of the delegates for protesters. So how's that going to play out in Chicago? Snelling says that he's already talked to a lot of protest groups. He expects to talk to a lot more.
Well, here's what I can tell you, because it's unpredictable who will arrive here. We're willing to meet with any protest group to have that conversation, to talk about expectations, to explain what it is that we expect of them.
And that is going to be interesting conversations and to see how it plays out on the streets. So a lot of questions about, the delegates' safety, a lot of questions about visitors' safety, but also upholding residents' safety and access to city services while this goes on. But what about non-citizen migrants? We heard earlier this week Chicago officials questioning the amount of migrants they expect to get from the southern U.S. border, something that Texas Governor Greg Abbott signaled he would do. And yesterday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, being part of this news conference, was asked that question about non-citizen migrants and how the city is going to brace for this, because the city's already said they haven't budgeted for a surge, and it could potentially be thousands of people sent in the weeks ahead of the Democratic National Convention. So here's Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. We played this clip at the front of this segment. Here he is being asked that question.
Well, there's been a very strong partnership between the state of Illinois and the county of Cook to prepare ourselves for that act if it were to take place. We have right now currently roughly 5,600 new arrivals that are still in our shelters. Our collective resources are prepared for as many as 15,000, but we certainly hope that Governor Abbott finds Jesus Christ as a Lord and Savior and don't do that.
So he hopes that Governor Abbott finds Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior and don't do that. Again, how is the city going to be handling those non-citizen migrants that could be transported to Chicago ahead of the DNC? We'll see how that works on the ground. Again, the Center Square will be there. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe, and hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network to join us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you for being part of the program and keeping updated with what's going on in the land of Lincoln.